This ancient painting hides a secret that art history tried to silence. Tonight we travel back to the exact moment the artist left his soul trapped inside the canvas. Welcome to Museum Mysteries.
Have you ever felt that an image is watching you from a place that doesn't belong to the visible world? That's what happens with the painting known as Ghostly Vision by Francisco de Goya, a work as disturbing as it is enigmatic, which seems to emerge from a dream or from the depths of the unconscious. Before it, the viewer does not simply contemplate a painting, they face a threshold, a dark mirror that reflects the part of themselves they prefer to keep hidden. The scene is small, barely an intimate canvas, but the force that emanates from within it is disproportionate. Within it vibrates the spirit of a turbulent time, the shadow of a Spain dominated by superstitions, wars, and religious fears, and the tormented soul of an artist who dared to look where no one else wanted to look. Francisco José de Goya y Lucientes was born in a remote village in Aragon in the 18th century, and from his earliest years, he felt that painting was more than a craft. It was a way to decipher the mysteries of the human soul. His life passed through royal courts, revolutions, illnesses, and exiles, and each stage left a profound mark on his way of creating. When he painted Ghostly Vision, around the year 1801, Goya was already over 50 years old and had just gone through one of the most difficult moments of his existence, a grave illness that left him completely deaf. That irreversible silence separated him from the outer world, but opened a new universe inside his mind. He began to hear inner voices, to see visions born from darkness. From that moment on, his painting changed forever. In those years, Goya distanced himself from courtly portraits and official commissions. He no longer sought to please kings or satisfy the tastes of the aristocracy. Now he painted what he felt, what he feared, what he saw in sleepless nights. The enlightened reason that had dominated his youth dissolved into an ocean of shadows. The line between dream and wakefulness faded away. Ghostly Vision belongs to that period of transition in which the artist began to release the inner demons that would later populate his famous black paintings. Yet in this small, still-contained work already pulses the essence of what was to come, the gaze of the man who contemplates the abyss and recognizes that the abyss is also gazing back at him. The canvas shows a central figure wrapped in a dark cloak. His face is almost imperceptible, but one can make out horns emerging from his head, as if the character were an embodiment of evil or fear. At his feet, tiny human figures appear to fear or worship him. The background is a starless night, a space belonging neither to heaven nor earth. Nothing in the painting has precise limits. The brushwork is quick, nervous, as if Goya himself felt pursued by the vision he tried to trap on the canvas. There is no clarity, no rest, only a fierce contrast between lights that barely illuminate and shadows that devour. In this composition, Goya does not seek to represent a recognizable scene. There is no story, no identifiable place. What exists is an emotion, the feeling of fear, of wonder, of being before something not entirely understood. That is the true subject of the painting. The mystery, in Goya's time, visions and ghosts were part of popular imagination, but he transforms them into a psychological language. What was once superstition becomes symbol. The ghost is not an alien spirit, it is the personification of the human unconscious. The horns crowning the figure could allude to the devil, but also to desire, guilt, or madness. Goya knew that evil was not outside, but within man. For many years it was believed that this painting had disappeared. It originally belonged to Juan Martín de Goicoechea, a close friend of the painter and an Aragonese businessman, to whom Goya often gifted some of his most personal works. It is known that Ghostly Vision remained in private hands, passing from generation to generation, until all trace of it was lost during the 20th century. Some old photographic records proved its existence, but no one knew where it was. It was as if the work itself had decided to hide from the world, perhaps to preserve its mystery intact. Only in the year 2018, nearly 90 years after its last documented appearance, art historian Arturo Anson Navarro announced its rediscovery in Zaragoza. The finding caused enormous commotion among specialists. It was not a minor painting, but a key piece for understanding Goya's evolution toward the expressive darkness that would characterize his later works. The piece was authenticated after rigorous technical studies and became part of the Camon Aznar Museum, where it can now be contemplated in all its somber splendor. Technical analysis revealed that Goya had worked with absolute freedom. There is no visible preparatory drawing, no grids, no trace of planning. The artist applied paint directly on a light priming with ochre tones, which gives the surface a particular brightness, as if the canvas itself breathed. The pigments are simple, but the effect is powerful. The limited palette, blacks, browns, grays, and ochres, reinforces the sense of nightmare. This way of working anticipates what he would later do in the black paintings, where color disappears to make room for pure emotion. Interpretations of ghostly vision have generated multiple readings. Some see in it a representation of the devil observing humanity. Others believe it is a dream or hallucination of the artist himself. There are also those who interpret it as a symbolic critique of the Church or the Inquisition, institutions that kept the people under the yoke of fear. The specter would then be the image of oppressive power, while the small figures would represent the subjugated people. Goya, who had witnessed the violence and hypocrisy of his time, used the language of myth to express collective anguish. But beyond any political or religious interpretation, the work possesses a universal meaning. It is the visualization of the ancestral fear we all carry within us, the fear of the unknown, of punishment, of the darkness that inhabits us. In that sense, the central figure is not an external demon, but the human spirit itself confronted with its shadow. Goya anticipates, unknowingly, the discoveries of modern psychology about the unconscious. The ghost he paints is a projection of his mind and of the minds of all human beings. The symbolic value of this work also lies in its format. Unlike grand murals or court portraits, ghostly vision is small, almost intimate. This suggests that it was not created for public display, but for the private circle of a friend or for the artist's personal contemplation. Goya worked at night, alone, and perhaps this painting was the result of one of those sleepless sessions in which memories, fears, and delusions mingled with the substance of dreams. The absence of any realistic reference turns the painting into a kind of window into his own subconscious. Over time, the painting acquired an almost legendary aura. Its prolonged disappearance, sudden rediscovery, and ambiguous meaning made it a work surrounded by mystery. Some collectors claimed that the painting was cursed, bringing misfortune to those who possessed it. Others swore that the specter's face seemed to change expression depending on the light of day, as if it were alive. Although these stories belong to the realm of legend, they contribute to the fascination the painting exerts on those who observe it. The reunion with ghostly vision in the 21st century not only enriched Goya's catalog, but also reopened debates about the nature of his art. Many critics had labeled him a painter of enlightened reason, or a precursor of Romanticism. However, works like this show that Goya was, above all, a visionary, an explorer of the dark regions of the human soul. He did not seek to represent beauty or perfection, but inner truth, even if that truth was disturbing. The painting also has documentary value, as it shows how the artist broke away from academic conventions to develop his own expressive language. His loose, violent brushwork defies the norms of his time. Instead of idealizing, refining, or beautifying, Goya stains, distorts, and decomposes form. That attitude makes him a forerunner of expressionism and modern art. In every stroke beats a raw emotion, a sincerity that still moves today. The museum that houses the work displays it discreetly, almost as a secret for the attentive visitor. Those who pause before it experience a mixture of unease and fascination. There is no explanation that exhausts it. Each person sees something different. Some perceive the figure of a lurking demon, others feel the presence of a spiritual energy, and some simply lose themselves in the contrast of light and shadow, unable to look away. That ambiguity is precisely what gives it power. The central figure, with its horns and cloak, embodies the ancestral taboo of evil, but also the magnetism of the forbidden. Goya knew that the demonic attracts because it reflects what we repress. The work thus functions as a moral mirror. In looking at the ghost, the viewer recognizes themselves in it. What provokes fear is not the creature itself, but the part of us reflected in its empty gaze. That is, the artist's true genius, transforming horror into an experience of self-knowledge. Although there are no records of public scandal related to this painting, its theme and tone placed it on the margins of what was acceptable. In a deeply Catholic society, to represent a demonic being with such humanity was almost a provocation. That is why Goya preferred to show these works only to his closest circle. His rebellion was not noisy but silent, laden with symbols. The ghost he paints does not scream, but its presence says everything. On a technical level, the work demonstrates absolute mastery. Goya handles chiaroscuro with expertise, but uses light not to describe, rather to suggest. He illuminates only what is necessary and leaves the rest in shadow, allowing the viewer's imagination to complete the scene. This visual economy gives the painting immense narrative power. Every brushstroke vibrates with tension. Nothing is gratuitous, nothing is there by chance. Today, more than 2 centuries later, Ghostly Vision still speaks with a force that transcends time. It reminds us that art does not only represent the visible, but also the invisible, that the true monsters do not live in darkness, but in the human mind, that every era has its own ghosts, and that facing them is the first step toward freedom. In a world saturated with images, this small painting remains a lesson in depth, a warning and a mirror. Goya left us, in that fragment of canvas, a meditation on fear, faith, and madness. He did it without words, without theories, only with the silent language of color and shadow. And perhaps that is why his message remains so powerful, because there are truths that can only be said in a whisper, and visions that only reveal themselves when the soul is ready to face its own ghosts. Thus, Ghostly Vision is not merely a lost and recovered painting. It is a spiritual experience. It is the story of an artist who, amid pain and silence, dared to paint what he saw beyond the veil. And it is also the story of all of us, still searching in the dark for a spark of understanding, a reflection that reminds us that even in the densest shadow there is a glimmer of truth waiting to be seen. At its core, what Goya shows us in this work is not a simple portrait of evil but a confession. The ghost emerging at the center of the canvas is the embodiment of his own doubts, his broken faith, his despair before a world where reason had failed. In his youth, he believed that human progress would bring justice and balance, but war, corruption, and violence disillusioned him. Ghostly Vision is his silent cry before that disillusionment. It is the moment when the enlightened man realizes that monsters do not disappear with the light of science, they only change shape and hide inside every human being. Contemplating it today, we understand that Goya was not merely a painter of horror, but a witness of the invisible. In each of his works, from the Capricciose to the Black paintings, he set out to reveal what society refused to see: madness, violence, fanaticism, death. Ghostly Vision anticipates all this with extraordinary subtlety. There is no blood or screaming, no torture or war, and yet the viewer feels a chill. It is the sensation of standing before a revelation. Goya understood that the deepest fear is not caused by external creatures, but by realizing that we ourselves can become those creatures. The painting survived time as a testament to that vision. Its surface resonates with the echo of an artist unafraid to confront his own shadows. Perhaps that is why the work seems alive. Its texture breathes, its darkness moves, its light flickers as if from an ancient fire. Everyone who looks at it receives a different impression, but all agree there is something hypnotic in its presence. It is as if the painting kept a secret, a truth that cannot be spoken in words. That is Goya's magic, to paint what cannot be explained. Modern studies have tried to decipher the exact meaning of the specter, but perhaps the greatness of the work lies in its ambiguity. It is not an illustration or a parable, it is a state of the soul. The artist did not wish to give us answers, but questions. What do you fear? What does your mind hide when no one sees you? What face would your own ghost have if you looked at it directly? Ghostly vision is an invitation to that inner dialogue, and in that sense it transcends any era or religion, because it speaks of the human being in his totality, with his light and shadow, with his faith and doubt. Today, when the world is submerged in new forms of darkness, technological, emotional, spiritual, this painting takes on an unexpected meaning. It reminds us that there can be no progress if we do not confront what we fear, that progress without conscience is only another mask of the abyss, that true vision is not in the eyes, but in the soul that dares to look. Goya, from his eternal silence, gives us a message that remains urgent. Humanity will not be free until it understands its own ghosts. In the stillness of the museum where it rests, ghostly vision seems to watch each visitor with an ancient, almost human gaze. Its figure does not threaten. It waits. It waits for the viewer to stop, to cease looking in haste, and begin to truly see. Then the painting transforms. What once seemed terrifying becomes compassionate. The ghost is no longer an enemy. It is a mirror. It returns our inner image with unbearable but also liberating clarity. It teaches us that shadow exists only because light exists. That is Goya's deepest legacy, reminding us that darkness is not the end, but the beginning of understanding. Ghostly vision does not seek to frighten. It seeks to awaken. It is the metaphor of a humanity that still stumbles over its fears, but by confronting them, can find the strength to transform itself. That is why every stroke, every shadow, every glimmer of the canvas continues to speak with its own voice, beyond time and language. Francisco de Goya, in the twilight of his life, painted what he saw with the eyes of the soul, and what he saw was a specter that did not belong to the beyond, but to the interior of man. With this work, he left us a warning and a promise. As long as fear exists, there will be art, and as long as there is art, there will be hope. Because even in the deepest night, there will always be a spark of consciousness ready to ignite. Ghostly vision is that spark, a vision that does not fade, a whisper from the past that continues to illuminate the darkness of our present.